outside of what's growing in the wilderness or what we take there. And there are no outward distractions. And that quietness, that lack of distractions in other people, that enables us to hear better what we need to hear, or what God's wanting to say to us. Another passage in Luke 6:12 says, "It was at this time," speaking of Jesus again, "that he went off to the mountain to pray, and he spent the whole night in prayer to God." Didn't tell anybody else, didn't take anybody with him, just went off to spend the night with the only one who knew his heart, who knew what his plans were, who knew what he needed to do. And interestingly, the next day he went out and called the 12 disciples. During that time of prayer, he got connected enough with his Father that he knew what he should do. And when he saw the right people, he knew what connections he needed to make. So many people just all over the board. Because we don't know. We haven't spent that quiet time to find out, what is it that I really need to do? Where is it that I really need to focus? And so we focus on everything and make nothing a real priority. Refreshment is often best had away from others. And this leads us to the second point, which is the first one was we need a break. The second is we need a break from others, right? You can probably relate to this. It doesn't, with all of the concerns going on in our world and all the problems that other people bring to us. This is especially true in leadership. Leadership isn't so much about telling other people what to do. Leadership is often so much about listening to other people and trying to help them and coach them towards a better place. And we listen to so much, and it's very easy to get to a place where just everybody's bringing their stuff to us, but we find there are few who we can take our stuff to. And so the quietness is essential. Jesus said in Mark 6:31, he said to his disciples, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while." For there were many people coming and going, and they didn't even have time to eat. The needs of others can keep us from caring for ourselves. And if you're a caregiving type personality or in a caregiving role, you'll know that. Well, it's like people can see you coming and they'll bring their needs to you and expect you to meet them. It's true in leadership roles too. The needs of others can keep us from caring for ourselves. But we have to remember that we cannot give what we do not have. Exhaustion, being scatterbrained, being hungry, or having unresolved emotional issues of our own, those don't enable us to help others well, and they can make us a burden rather than the benefit or the blessing that we would like to be to other people. Caring for ourselves is the first step in loving others. So if you're a caregiver type person who's just always doing for other people, you've got to realize that once you get burnt out and dragged down, you're not going to be much good to people. Ongoing self-maintenance and refreshment and recreation, letting that ground lie fallow, as it were, so that it can produce better, higher quality fruit. It's the same for us. And we all need to realize that, however tuned in we are to wanting to be the answer to every problem we hear about or taking care of others, we have to take that time away. Now, another point under coming apart from other people is that those who are worried and upset about many things resent and pressure those who are restful and tuned in and listening. It's not the other way around. There's a story that we read about in Luke chapter 10, and it said that as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Luke 10:38 through 42. Now, just think about that. If you're a person who tends to be somewhat restful, reflective, quiet, and is a good listener and is taking in, boy, you will drive the people around you who are anxious and worried about many things crazy. Those Martha types who always have to be futzing, always have to be doing something, they tend to resent and complain about the more quiet people. But you don't find that it works in reverse. The quiet people, they're often not going out and complaining about the super busy people. They choose not to be that way, but they tend to not go and complain about them. You see, it was Martha who complained to Jesus about Mary because she thought she wasn't helping enough. But here's the beautiful thing is that Mary got divine affirmation and protection from God himself, if you choose to believe that. When Martha, her sister, started complaining to Jesus, he said, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. He protected her. He values that quiet space, that place of receiving, that place of just being there with the heart with him, or just quietly by yourself in that place that helps restore you. So even contact with those we love still requires energy, concentration, and focus on where they are. Just because we love people doesn't mean we can be around them indefinitely without getting worn out. Because when we're around other people, even ones we care deeply for, we often can't get in touch with our own thoughts while the other people are constantly putting their thoughts in our minds. And if you happen to have people you love who are really talkative people who always have something on their mind, you have to come apart. Because after a while, you just won't be able to focus anymore. And then you risk coming across as being offensive because you're not listening. Sometimes we don't listen. It may be because we're not very caring people, or it may be because other people are talking all the time. And we've just, our listener is worn out, and we have to come across. Sometimes we've often been in a noisy place and we say, I can't hear myself think. Well, that's true of noisy environments, but it's also true of being around other people too long. And we're constantly having conversations about their thoughts, what's on their mind. We need to come aside so we can get focused, so we can hear, like we said about the wilderness, that quiet place where we can actually hear what's going on in our own hearts and in our own minds and get refocused. Lastly, number 3, sometimes we need a break from ourselves. It's not just other people we need a break from. It's what's going on in our own minds and hearts. We're told to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Sometimes we need a break from our own thinking. We need new thoughts and different thoughts that can help transform us into the people we want to become. We're told in Philippians chapter 4 that finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence and anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Let our hearts, we have to learn to let our hearts just focus on these things, to be saturated, to marinate in good things. There's so much negative stuff we can focus on. For some people, it seems like that's their favorite pastime, is to focus on the negative things or to see a problem with every solution. But we have to deliberately choose the beautiful. Like this list said, the honorable, the right, the pure, the lovely, to choose the lovely things to focus on. There's something good, like Mr. Rogers used to say, he would tell of when he was a young boy and he would see some tragedy on TV. And his mother taught him, whenever you see something tragic, there will always be helpers. Focus on the helpers. We've got to learn to focus our minds on the good things and to rest there and to be quiet in there. So, a couple of questions to ask when it comes to ourselves and needing a break from ourselves is we all tend to have triggers and buttons that can be pushed. And for some people, it seems like their buttons are always being pushed. Everything pushes a button. But how about asking ourselves, what if that didn't bother me? That thing that we're complaining about, that we're focused on, that negative, what if that didn't bother you? What if you decided that that wasn't going to bother you? You weren't going to try to change it, but you were going to decide that, hey, that's not going to affect me. That's not going to steal my focus and steal my energy and steal my feelings and my thinking. I'm going to choose to focus on other. I'm going to choose to not let that bother me. You have the power. Every time we get bothered by something, we made a choice to let it bother us. Another thing that happens to people that we need a break from is I've known people who just work so hard And they were just so driven and so involved with tedious effort that then when they did get a break, instead of taking the time down to renew themselves, they felt like, hey, I deserve to have a good time. And they put just as much effort and energy into trying to have a good time. So now they were doubly tired. And then by the time they had to go, were so gung-ho about trying to have a good time on the weekend. By the time they went back to work on Monday, they were really wiped out. They had nothing left to give. So we need to watch out for that too. Okay, so we're going to take a break for a minute, and then I'll be back, and we'll wrap up with some applications.
Jeff will be back shortly to wrap up today's message. This is Gabriela, still on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. If you've missed any part of today's message, you can hear it again online, as well as the entire archive of Empowered Living at www.talknetworkradio.com or search keyword #EmpoweredLiving. We would like to acknowledge our music partners, Sound Ideas for Corporate to the Max and Kevin MacLeod for Airport Lounge. Any scriptures read during this broadcast are from the New American Standard Version of the Holy Bible. If you would like to learn more about Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, visit www.jeffbyrdcoaching.com. That is JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Do a Facebook search for @CoachingRocks or drop Jeff a line at jeff@jeffbyrdcoaching.com. Again, JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Let Jeff's Coaching Rocks be the building blocks of your empowered success. Now, let's go back to Jeff for the rest of today's message.
So, for the application questions to today's session, I want to ask you, what does it take to get you to slow down? Do you have to hit a wall, or does something bad have to happen, or have some issue? It reminds me, I worked with a friend, and she told me one time that she had a dream, and she was just on this curvy mountain road, and her car was going faster and faster and faster, and she just couldn't slow it down, and she ended up in the dream running off the road and wrecking the car just so she could stop. Seems like that's what it takes for some of us. We just have to hit a wall or come to a crisis because we're so exhausted before we'll stop. But if you know what it takes to get you to slow down, how can you identify this sooner, before the crisis, so that you can avoid exhaustion and be able to take the time you need for yourself before you get to a crisis point? Question number 2 is, where is your banquet table of love? I talked about the verse earlier from Song of Solomon that God, it said, he brought me to his banqueting table. His banner over me was love. Where is your banquet of love? Where are you? Who are you with? Or what are you thinking about when you feel the most unconditional love? Now, how can you enhance that on a regular basis? Making more time, deliberately prioritizing that in your schedule, putting it on your calendar so that you can spend more time in your situation when you are at your banquet of love, in that unconditional love space where you're accepted. Because I guarantee you, the more accepted you feel as you are, the more accepting you'll be of others where they are, and the better you'll be able to help see clearly to lead them to a better place. Number 3, where do you go to be restored, or to think, or to pray? Do you have a favorite spot? Maybe you're like me, you have a favorite chair. Or maybe I've had a friend that just every once a week they went out to the beach and just spent the morning on the beach. I love to go to the beach in the evenings with my wife and watch the sunsets. But do you have a favorite place? Maybe it's a walk in the woods, or a favorite bench, or a garden, or a park. Do you have a favorite spot where you go to be restored, or to think, or to pray? How soon can you prioritize getting there? Not just waiting until you have a few free moments and it just happens to open up and then you go there, but how soon can you prioritize getting there on a regular basis? Also, what things aren't really urgent or important that can either wait or that you can eliminate from your schedule in order to create more time for what restores you? There's a little exercise we do in coaching sometimes. It's called the 15-minute miracle. And it's just keeping a log every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. of what you do every 15 minutes. If you were to do that, what would you find in your daily agenda that either isn't urgent or isn't important and that you could eliminate or that you could put on the back burner that can wait, that doesn't have to be done right now so that you can make some time for you? Also, what thoughts are you deliberately choosing to put in your mind on a daily basis? Leif Hetland says that what we behold, we become. And heaven